Move on if you try. I don't believe it, baby. I know you lied all night long. What you mean I changed? I stay the same. Had me losing my mind. Said the city is mine. Why you never represent me? You do no wrong. I can clean up good for you. I know right from wrong. 'Cause I wanna make it. So mad. I'm $1 million baby. Don't let why you never represent me. You do no wrong. I can clean up good for you. I know right from wrong. 'Cause I wanna make it. So mad. I'm $1 million baby. Don't let me. Hell no.
What's going on? It's Dapper Don. Let me be the first to welcome you to episode 1 of a new show called Wassup Cardinals. This show is basically a show where we do whatever we want. I was trying to figure out a better way to explain that. There is no better way to explain that. We do whatever we want. Topics range from true crime to weird foods and everything in between. Heck, we may even invite you to participate. So if you want a show where you'll never know what comes next, tune in Wednesdays at 4 p.m. here on WCRD 91.3. Now here's a quick word from our sponsors. Okay, let me just...
Couldn't be easier when you ride with MITS. Students ride completely free on all 14 routes covering the city, with stops at Ball State's campus, Walmart, Minnetrista, Ball Memorial Hospital, and many more in between. Download the MITS Bus app for real-time location information and the most accurate ETA for every bus stop of every route. Go to mitsbus.org for more information.
Attention WCRD listeners, we are pleased to announce that you can now interact with your radio show host through the radio.
I'm looking for.
She was 27 years old. She got in her car and took the gun that my grandfather had given her for self-defense. She never got to see her son grow up to be anything. Because she had easy access to a gun, I've been robbed of that relationship.
65 Americans a day die by gun suicide. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn more at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by Brady and the Ad Council.
All right, we are back. Now, before we jump into today's topics, why don't we see what's up with Muncie? Now, let's see here. Let's take a look here. All right. So, this is an article from the Star Press. New storage sorting facility for buyer's market could add 60 jobs. This article was written by... No, I am not subscribing. This article was written by... it was just published by the Star Press. Muncie, Indiana, Buyers Market, which opened an off-price retail store in Muncie Mall in June 2021, has leased the former Pepsi facility on North Walnut Street to provide more opportunities to expand. Okay, well that's pretty cool. Let's see what else is going on here. Looks like on Fox 59 here, an article written by Michael Van Schoik. Just weeks apart from the first deadly shooting of the year in Muncie, police are now investigating the city's second homicide. This is Delaware County. Delaware County prosecutor discusses crime trends following Muncie's second 2024 homicide. On Tuesday, the Muncie Police Department identified a 29-year-old Jamal Wallace as the man killed in a shooting on Saturday afternoon. This deadly incident comes in the same month as the city's first homicide of the year. A teenager was shot and killed just a few weeks earlier on August 15th. That is very unfortunate. And now we've got some... Oh, I see. Okay. Excuse me, folks. Okay. And then another article from the Star Press here. Meet Cade Hampton, the new Ball State and high school sports reporter for the Star Press. Written by Cade Hampton. Hello, Star Press readers and community of Muncie. Hello, Star Press readers and community of Muncie. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. My name is Cade Hampton, and I am very excited to introduce myself as the new Ball State football and high school sports reporter for the Muncie Star Press, part of the USA Today network. So we'll welcome him. All right, let's take a look at a couple more here. See what's really going on. This one is an article from the Muncie Journal. There we go. Can you solve the Great Muncie Mystery? An article by Michelle Kinsey. Put on your thinking caps, local gumshoes, and get ready to hit the bricks to solve one humdinger of a mystery. Mystery-loving dames and swells are invited to head downtown during September's first Thursday, September 5th, to question suspects, look for clues, and hopefully solve the case. The Great Muncie Mystery is hosted by Ball State University's Office of Community Engagement, the Muncie Downtown Development Partnership, Ivy Tech Community College, and Muncie Civic Theater. The event is free and open to all. Shoot, I might go. The mystery with a 1920s Great Gatsby theme is in cahoots with the Muncie Civic Theater's upcoming production. And that's all in Muncie news. All right, so now that you're all caught up, we're going to dive right in. Today's topic, the Turner Diaries, the National Alliance, and racism in the 70s. This little topic popped into my head after I had dinner with a friend of mine. In fact, he's sitting here with me today, so let me introduce you to my buddy. Miles. Go ahead, tell us about yourself. You're on the air.
Hi,
1 second. There we go.
Hi, I'm Miles Kovalevsky. I'm a freshman here at Ball State, and I'm majoring in media production and minoring in screenwriting and creative writing. I found this topic to be very interesting because it's a lesser known topic that I feel like not a lot of people would really know about. And I feel like this segment could be good for like a bit of an educational experience if anyone wants to know what people like, I guess, neo-Nazis or white supremacists think. Because to me, it feels like people have a very, I guess, one-dimensional of what they think, when in reality, they have their own religions and whatnot, I guess. And they have their own ideas, and we're talking about some people today who see themselves as essentially the political vanguard of the of what they want to be for the white nationalist revolution of the United States.
Perfect. So yes, we are talking about hate groups in the 70s, and that is, as he brought up too, a topic that's just recent enough to where some people still think like this today. And I'm sure you understand, dear listeners, that the topics we talk about with our friends, as in what I was talking about with Miles, can be quite controversial. This topic in particular stuck with me because, one, it was the only thing that we talked about that day that I could justify putting on the air. And two, it's important that we bring awareness to this issue. You know, your neighbor, your friends, even your family could be thinking like this in a less severe, modernized sort of way, but it's still like this. And oh yeah, I should probably put some kind of trigger warning here. So, trigger warning. Racism and a good chunk of what it entails will be mentioned or implied during this broadcast. If these topics are not your cup of tea, I encourage you to take care of yourself, because I ain't reading all those angry letters. If you can handle it, join us. If not, we'll have other episodes. Now, on to the Turner Diaries. First off, what the heck are the Turner Diaries? Well, the Turner Diaries, published in 1978, was written by this lunatic, Andrew MacDonald, under the pseudonym William Luther Pierce, a former physics professor turned extremist. There's a joke there. You'll make it yourself. I'm not doing that. For the particularly astute among you, You may know this book for inspiring the infamous Oklahoma City bombing of 1995, a tragic event that took nearly 200 innocent lives. Pierce was essentially the father of racism in the 70s, having been a high-ranking member of the American Nazi Party, a political party dedicated to the hatred of the enemies of the, quote, Aryan race. And if you know anything about what I just mentioned, you know these enemies are minorities, people of Jewish descent, and liberals. If you're at all surprised by anything I just mentioned, I'd really like to know what rock you were stuck under, because I may just join you. Now,
The author of the Turner Diaries, William Luther Pierce, he was born in Atlanta, Georgia, and he was of English, Scottish, and Irish descent. His ancestors were of the his ancestors was, I believe, a lieutenant governor of I believe it was Alabama during the Civil War, Confederate States of America, and he eventually became a physicist. He got the degree as a physicist, becoming a doctor. And there was a while where he would be at Oregon State University teaching as a assistant professor. And around that time, the Vietnam War was really going on. You kind of need to understand what was happening in history at that time. Stuff like the Civil Rights era and the Vietnam War, especially protests to the Vietnam War, which influenced his thinking on the matter. In fact, the idea from the Turner Diaries came from the fact that during the Civil Rights movement, he kept on thinking about government interference with the whole civil rights movement, and he's just thinking, if it was initially going to be about government overreach, which was evident in the first few chapters of the book, but eventually I don't believe he dropped out. He was initially part of the John Bircher Society, which was an anti-communist society, but he dropped out of that due to the fact that they weren't going to be part of, they weren't pushing the racial ideologies that he wanted.
So you can tell it's a real stellar individual we're talking about today. Now, to summarize the Turner Diaries, it's a horribly written racist fan fiction. It starts off with a foreword from the perspective of a future historian finding the written accounts of one Earl Turner, our protagonist. The main character, Earl Turner, is a weapons-toting, minority-hating, war-mongering, quote-unquote rebel, portrayed as the sympathetic martyr, while the ones trying to put a stop to him and his rebellion by taking away his oh-so-precious weapons are portrayed as the tyrannical government pigs. And yes, this tyrannical government includes black people, or as he affectionately calls us, blacks, or Negroes, Jewish individuals referred to as Jews, and white liberals. The book follows this human as he joins a group known as the Organization, whose primary objective is to topple the above-mentioned government through violent means. Now, the Organization, that's a real creative, stupendously creative name, isn't it, Miles?
It's a kind of a thing throughout the whole book. It's never really a specific, they don't really go into, it's just kind of like the systems portrayed in the book are just that. It's the system, the organization, the order, the book.
So if you're ever looking to write a book, just know that if you ever have to write an evil empire, you can just call it The Evil Empire. That's super creative right there. So take it from this show. Don't take it from this show. Anyways, the book ultimately ends with the group being successful and slowly but surely taking over the world in that book. It's exactly the type of propaganda you'd expect to read during World War II, just modernized. However, it is also written comically bad, so we'll definitely take a look at some highlights to just give you an idea of the depths of this madness. But first, let me tell you the battle I had to fight to make this episode into an actually informative one. You would not believe the hoops I had to jump through to even try to get a copy of this thing. I couldn't find it on Google. Almost every other link was to reports written by people who read the book, which, oh, wow, that sure doesn't activate my FOMO at all. And when I did find a paperback edition, it was like $30. Now, I have some weird stuff in my purchase history, and I've probably typed this book's name into Google so much I'm on some kind of watch list, but I just can't justify that purchase. I can't. Not because I can't buy it, it's just not a good look. Thank goodness Miles, who also graciously helped us with the research for today's episode, found a PDF copy of the book or I'd be cooked. And I guess what's upsetting me is not the clear attempt to curtail the distribution of the content. After all, I understand the reason. It's the fact that literature like this still needs to be studied no matter how bad it is. We need to know exactly what this ideology looks like so we know how to properly fight it. We need to know what goes through the minds of people like this and what causes people to think along these lines in the first place. What makes someone go from a slightly bigoted yet harmless ignorance to a full-on militant hatred? Even Pierce himself didn't start off this extreme. He had some ignorant thoughts, but they were nothing that couldn't have been overturned with correct guidance. However, over time, as he bought into propaganda, read the literature of his own horrid predecessors, and meditated in his own hatred, his thoughts that the government was a little too forceful in integrating people snowballed into one of the worst displays of outward racism since Adolf. And if we nail down and are able to easily study what causes people to think like this, then maybe, just maybe, we can hope to put a stop to it, since we'll know more of the signs. But I digress. Now, before we jump into the finer details of this horrid book, I did find an interesting article from the International Center for Counterterrorism going over the life of MacDonald and this particular book. So me and Miles are going to take a look at this now. So, Miles,
Hold on.
you gotta, yeah, it's a PDF.
I know it's a PDF. My bad.
No, it's on me. I found this and yeah, I didn't realize it was but yeah. So let's first let's first talk about the author himself. So, let me make sure. There it is. The author. All right, Miles. I'm going to start with the first paragraph of this, and then you can take it on from the second two paragraphs. Born in Atlanta on September 11th, 1933, his family moved to Texas when he was 4. I was sort of a nerdy kid without social skills, he recalled. Awkward around girls and counting few friends. Oh, great, one of those. Pierce filled his childhood with adventures from the pages of Planet Stories, a pulp magazine that featured tales from future luminaries such as Ray Bradbury, Paul Anderson, Isaac Asimov, and Philip K. Dick. The magazine's pages were frequently devoted to lurid spectacles, with titles like Venus Enslaved and Warrior Maid of Mars. Its brightly colored covers featuring illustrations of buxom women in skin-tight space-age costumes. Oh, God, it really is one of those people.
As a teenager, Pierce's interest in science fiction gave way to an interest in science. He bought electronic kits and chemistry sets using money earned mowing lawns, and traded the fanciful world of pulps for glossy Scientific American and Popular Mechanics. When Pierce entered college in Texas in 1951, he studied physics. On graduation, he put his knowledge to work for the government, with research stints in Los Alamos National Laboratory, home of the Manhattan Project, and the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, which was focused on the technology of space exploration. In 1957, he married a colleague, a mathematician, and in 1960, they had twin sons.
Yeah. Between his family and his demanding studies, Pierce had been living in a bubble for most of his adult life, paying little attention to the outside world. He soon returned to school to complete his doctorate at the University of Colorado in 1962, continuing on at the university as a teacher for 3 years. After graduation, his academic demands lessened, and for practically the first time, he widened his gaze beyond the realm of physics. What he saw was the burgeoning civil rights movement.
Pierce claimed he was initially sympathetic to the idea of equal rights for blacks, but suspicious of government efforts that he saw as forcing integration on people who should be able to freely choose with whom they associated. He fumed at what he saw as a media depicting segregationists as hateful and ignorant. He claimed he heard whispers among some of his academic colleagues that the bias was being driven by Jews, a premise that piqued his interest.
Yes, and the more he considered racial matters, the uglier his perspective became. On more than one occasion, Pierce recounted the story of a white academic colleague who had married a woman of mixed race, disparagingly describing their children as awful-looking and wondering how their father could possibly love them. The question nagged at him persistently, and his thoughts about segregation soon grew militant. By his own admission, Pierce was prone to taking his thoughts to extreme and simplistic conclusions. I realize that I have a turn of mind that leads me to exaggerate and oversimplify things for the sake of better understanding, and I know there are dangers in that, he told his biographer when reflecting on his radicalization. But I think that tendency in me helps me to get to the essence of things. So what we're seeing now is that when he finally got a break from his studies, after spending his entire childhood meditating in this hatred, stewing in this hatred, when he finally got a break from his studies, he went full force. And it happened right after he saw the civil rights movement. So this is a man who was not raised in a very accepting household. He also grew up and kind of went straight for his career. And when he saw the civil rights movement, it immediately flipped a switch in him. So this is the type of individual we're talking about today. Let me see here. Okay. So now, what do you think about what we just read, Miles?
I'm thinking that I feel like it is something that I'd say is a pretty universal tale when it comes to people who were initially, I'd say, I guess, in his shoes. You know, he initially did support equality between blacks and whites, and it just happened that the circle of people he was around were, I guess, somewhat of, they were saying things that it was experiences that I was hearing of, and I'd say it was a bit of a thing where he was somewhat paranoid about what would happen if...
He was like a freedom nut, wasn't he?
Well, I'd say, yeah. I think it's a bit of a weird primal thing or whatever.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's kind of like an inherent thing that I think all races kind of have.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I guess it's like, if you could describe it, it's like a deep down, deep-seated hatred, like how you probably hate having spiders in your house, that type of thing, right?
It was like a very, I'd say, extreme form of tribalism.
Right. Yeah, no, I get you. I just want to read a couple of highlights from the Turner Diaries here, just so you get an idea of the type of stuff that we had to deal with in reading this. Let me see.
We do not endorse any of the
content portrayed in this book.
This is only for educational purposes.
To put in perspective for you, I'm a black man, and my co-host is Jewish. We are the exact demographic this guy hates, and we're ripping apart his book. So, I'm not racist. So here's this. I opened the door, and 4 Negroes came pushing into the apartment before I could stop them. One was carrying a baseball bat, and 2 had long kitchen knives thrust into their belts. The one with the bat showed me back into a corner and stood guard over me with his bat raised in a threatening position, while the other 3 began ransacking my apartment. My first thought was that they were robbers. Robberies of this sort had become all too common since the Cohen Act, with groups of blacks forcing their way into white homes to rob and do inappropriate things to people, knowing that even if their victims had guns, they probably would not dare use them. Then the one who was guarding me flashed some kind of card and informed me that he and his accomplice were special deputies for the Northern Virginia Human Relations Council. They were searching for firearms, he said. I couldn't believe it. Also, notice how there's no direct quotes in this book? Yeah, we're dealing with some stellar writing here. I couldn't believe it. It just couldn't be happening. Then I saw that they were wearing strips of green cloth tied around their left arms as they dumped the contents of drawers on the floor and pulled luggage from the closet. They were ignoring things that robbers wouldn't have passed up. My brand new electric razor, a valuable gold pocket watch, a milk bottle full of dimes. They were looking for firearms. Right after the Cohen Act was passed, all of us in the organization, oh, that's just a wonderful name, had cached our guns and ammunitions where they weren't likely to be found. So, already, we've got a portrayal of blacks as violent, ignorant, turning over, aggressive, destruction. If you didn't catch the bit about the robberies, apparently in this world, it's common for blacks or Negroes to just bust into white homes and rob and do inappropriate things. You know, the kind of fear that all of these racists had kind of back in the day. And now we also have the guy wielding a bunch of weapons being portrayed as the sympathetic guy, and the government trying to stop him from doing something crazy being portrayed as tyrannical. So already we're kind of in there. Let me see. What else? What did you think of what we just read?
Well, the opening of the book probably had the most impact, I'd say, on people. One of the few things, I guess, one of the major impacts the book had that I believe we mentioned earlier was the Oklahoma City bombing, and the perpetrator, Timothy McVeigh, and one of the scenes from the book is actually something he replicated. I think it was a fertilizer bomb that he used to blow up a federal building in Oklahoma City. To Timothy McVeigh, it was more of the fact that it was more of like the government overreach that, they're going to take our guns away. What are they going to do when they take our guns away? We'll be defenseless then. And he also saw it as the actions itself. It was more of like retribution for what the federal government did to people at like Waco and Ruby Ridge and whatnot. And he sold the book at gun rights shows. He was in the military, and a vast majority of some of the people in the organization were ex-military in the book. So that kind of explains where a lot of their ammunition would come from, where they wouldn't all these whole gun raids things. They would have like people inside the military who would be who would supply them after the fact, like contacts within the military.
Right. And I just want to take a second to kind of like, hold on, just give me 1 second here. Okay, I just want to take a second to talk about the actual Oklahoma City bombing, just to kind of give you just to kind of let you know that this idea is influential. These ideas are influential, and they do happen in the modern times. Just give me 1 quick second to jump back into that the Turner Legacy article, International Center for Counterterrorism. There we go. I'm sorry. Yes, so the author of this article, by the way, is J.M. Berger. But yeah, so on April 19th, 1995, again, pretty recent, Timothy McVeigh drove away from the smoldering ruins of the Alfred E. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City on April 19th, 1995, he carefully placed a white, legalized envelope in the front seat of his car. If anything happened to him, the envelope would ensure people knew why he had carried out the worst act of domestic terrorism in American history. On the outside of the envelope, he had written, "Obey the Constitution of the United States and we won't shoot you." Inside were right-wing propaganda pamphlets and news clippings about gun control and the deadly siege in Waco, Texas, which had happened on the same date 2 years ago. There were also photocopied pages from McVeigh's favorite book, the Turner Diaries. Little known outside of extremist circles at the time, the Turner Diaries is what we described, a crudely written dystopian novel about blacks and Jews confiscating guns from white Americans and the rise of a white supremacist insurgency known as the Order. The novel is presented as a found document, the diaries of Earl Turner, one of the white supremacists who fought in this conflict, and it is framed with a forward and afterword written by a future historian who places the diaries in context. The Turner Diaries was written by William Luther Pierce, founder of the neo-Nazi organization, the National Alliance, and published as a serial in the group's newsletter beginning in 1975. The chapters were revised and collected in a book form in 1978. So yes, William Luther Pierce, father of racism in the 70s. And that actually brings us to a good point to talk about the National Alliance. Well, first, did you want to take a break real quick, or are you good?
We can take a break. We can come back to it.
All right. Well, first, we're going to actually take a 3-minute breather, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the National Alliance, which is the hate group that William Luther Pierce founded. So we shall return here in just a moment.
I can't keep a plan alive even if I try to, no. And I told myself that I'm going to hell and I'm going alone. But you came into my dimension, and I guess that I forgot to mention, I'm gonna drive you mad when I'm done. Your dad will say she's psycho, and those three little words might as well be R.I.P. Ugh. I kill everything I've ever loved. Oh, oh, oh. I got a dead kiss. I will be the one to mess it up. Oh, oh, oh. You got a death wish. I don't know how or when, but I know it's gonna have a tragic end. 'Cause I kill everything I've ever loved. You got a death wish. You got a death wish. I got a poison kiss, a graveyard of fish. I flush down the toilet, and I know that I am gonna let it die, so might as well enjoy it. But you came into my dimension, and I guess that I forgot to mention, I got away with hearts. Skip to the part where I destroy it, and those three little words might as well be R.I.P. Ugh. I kill everything I've ever loved. Oh, oh, oh. I got a dead kiss. I will be the one to mess it up. Oh, oh, oh. You got a death wish. I don't know how or when, but I know it's gonna have a tragic end. 'Cause I kill everything I've ever loved. I kill everything. Got a death wish. My love should come with a warning, and baby, our love will be dead by the morning. My love should come with a warning, and baby, our love will be dead by the morning. I kill everything I've ever loved. Oh, oh, oh. I got a dead kiss. I will be the one to mess it up. Oh, oh, oh. You got a death wish. I don't know how or when, but I know it's gonna have a tragic end. 'Cause I kill everything I've ever loved. I kill everything I've ever loved. You got a death wish.
91.3 FM, WCRD, Muncie. Pop, indie, rock, and more. Chirping at Ball State University. WCRD.
Okay, we are back, and we're going to be transitioning back. We're going to be transitioning here into our talk about the National Alliance, which is the hate group that William Luther Pierce, also known as Andrew McDonald, started. So just give me 1 second to pull that up here. And this article is from this article is from the SPL Center. This article is written by let me just see. Okay, it doesn't show an author, it just shows SPL Center, splcenter.org. So the National Alliance was for decades the most dangerous and best organized neo-Nazi formation in America. Explicitly pretty not alivey in its ideology, the National Alliance materials call for the eradication of the Jews and other races and the creation of an all-white homeland. So essentially, this is literally exactly like the Nazis, just modernized. They tried to turn it into a political party. This is a common thing with these groups of hate. These hate groups, they try to modernize. They try to make themselves political parties. They try to make themselves government officials. They try to make themselves like they try to really sink into the ideologies of today. That is why it is so important that we are making sure that we understand the basis for these ideologies. It is really important. So the organization was founded by William Pierce in 1970. The group produced assassins, bombers, bank robbers, and among other things. Pierce's novel, The Turner Diaries, was the inspiration for Timothy McVeigh's horrible act, the bombing of the federal building in Oklahoma City, and many other acts of terror. After Pierce died unexpectedly in 2002, the group suffered several splits and ultimately lost most of its members. It actually went defunct fully in 2005. That is really recent. And it's really scary how recent that is because I have memories from 2005. Actual memories. That's just messed up, isn't it?
The National Alliance, other things that the National Alliance does that one of the other, I wouldn't really say it's a splinter group, but one of the other things that, other than the Oklahoma City bombing, was an actual, I'd say was a bit of a criminal organization that was based off of one of the organizations in the Turner Diaries known as the Order. The Order was more of like an offshoot of the National Alliance and also went by the name Silent Brotherhood. And it basically tried to do some of the things that happened in the beginning of the book, where the protagonists, they are spending, so in the book, to give you a good idea, they're spending their time like robbing to self-finance and like to get groceries because they're technically kind of on a banned list. They were the founder of the Order was Robert J. Matthews, and the Order was most infamously known for the murder of a Jewish talk show host, Alan Berg.
Yeah. They are actually prolific. It's not one of those things where it's like they were prolific. They were prolific until 2005. They actually did have quite the impact on national like happenings. And I do have these people's mission statement pulled up. Again, me and Miles do not endorse the ideological whatevers that are portrayed here. Again, black man, Jewish man. It would be really weird if we did. But in its own words, our world is hierarchical. Each of us is a member of the Aryan or European race, which, like the other races, developed its special characteristics over many thousands of years. Those races which evolved in the more demanding environment of the North, where surviving a winter required planning and self-discipline, advanced more rapidly in the development of the higher mental faculties than those which remained in the unvarying climate of the tropics. You know, the falsehood BS, the Sambo stuff. The black people have the small brains and big rest of the parts they can work in the field. They operate based on those types of myths. But again, just modernized. And it's actually crazy that they were able to last until 2005. But there were just so many people that thought like that you wouldn't think thought like that were just in the group, and nobody knew. Nobody knew a thing. I mean, for God's sakes, the leader of the group was like that, and nobody knew for quite a long time. So, like, yeah.
Another thing which I might have felt like might have drawn people to the National Alliance, besides, its views and, what was kind of going on at the time, was that Pierce technically invented his own religion as kind of like, it's not really an offshoot of Christianity because he makes his views on Christianity kind of clear in the Turner Diaries, some are good, others are bad. But he invented his own religion that was based around social Darwinism, known as cosmotheism. his personal views on Christianity is that it was too spiritual, even though he talks of God in the Turner Diaries, and how, if they don't win the war, then God's great design will end up failing.
Right. And that is like, and these guys, these ridiculous ideas go back a pretty far ways. Like, I don't think you understand. Because like people, you always hear people talking like, oh, the racist stuff. Yeah, I know that happened way back when, but you don't understand the extent of the ridiculousness of the ideas that they believed. So this one is the New York Times Magazine article by Linda Villarosa. Myths about physical racial differences were used to justify slavery and are still believed by doctors today. The excruciatingly painful medical experiments went on until his body was disfigured by a network of scars. John Brown, an enslaved man on a Baldwin County, Georgia plantation in the 1820s and 30s, was lent to a physician, Dr. Thomas Hamilton, who was obsessed with proving that physiological differences between black and white people existed. Hamilton used Brown to try to determine how deep black skin went, believing it was thicker than white skin. Brown, who eventually escaped to England, recorded his experiences in an autobiography published in 1855 as Slave Life in Georgia, a narrative of the life, sufferings, and escape of John Brown, a fugitive slave now in England. In Brown's words, Hamilton applied blisters to my hands, legs, and feet, which bear the scars to this day. He continued until he drew up the dark skin from between the upper and the under one. He used to blister me at intervals of about 2 weeks. This went on for 9 months, Brown wrote, until the doctor's experiments had so reduced me that I was useless in the field. So you already get the sense, right? This crazy doctor thought that this individual was just an animal to be experimented on. The way they experiment on rabbits and things like that now is how they experimented on John Brown, this poor individual, giving him blisters, ripping off his skin, because they viewed black as some kind of disease. He was an animal. He was inferior. And this is what these hate groups, these 70s going into 2005 hate groups, they still believe this, right? This is going into 2005 with people who still believe this in this exact form, not modernized, not twisted, people who still believe this in this exact form. And they're everywhere because, again, you could be a part of this thought process and nobody even know you're a part of this thought process. So we should be mindful of that. I should also transition here to a few of the racist myths here that some of these groups still believe to this day in their unaltered forms. This is an article from the Jim Crow Museum by Laura Green. And we are going to skip forward to the Sambo. One of the most enduring stereotypes in American history is that of the Sambo. This pervasive image of a simple-minded, docile black man dates back at least as far as the colonization of America. The Sambo stereotype flourished during the reign of slavery in the United States. In fact, the notion of the happy slave is the core of Sambo caricature. White slave owners molded African American males as a whole into this image of a jolly, overgrown child who was happy to serve his master. Again, dumb, jolly, overgrown, it was messed up. It was just messed up. Now, I don't want to specifically lean this over too much into like the end of the experiences of my people. So, Miles, why don't you take a few minutes to talk about the type of stereotypes and things that were thought of about Jewish people?
Well, considering the fact that it actually goes back thousands of years, all the way back to the death of Christ, where one of the first things that people were thinking of the death of Christ was the 30 pieces of silver. That I'm not too much into biblical Christian stuff, but what I do know is one of the was that the 30 pieces of silver that was paid in order to that was paid allegedly by Jews to get Jesus on the cross. And you also have other things such as over the thousands of years where you hear things like the 109 countries, which I actually have trouble finding all 109, but then again, these are,
Yeah.
And it there are also things that go back to things such as like the core myth that people were wanting to talk about was that's still kind of like a big thing within circles such as these today's is the Zionist occupied government, which says that no white nation in the West is able to fulfill its own pursue its own destiny or whatever, because the government is run by collaborators of the apparently so-called Jewish race, who see only loyalty to stuff like Israel and want to promote things that apparently Jews want, such as interracial marriage and whatnot, because it was one of the few things that was also touched upon in Pierce's other novel, which was more of a philosophical educational exercise more than a poorly written fan fiction that wouldn't seem out of place on 4chan nowadays. The other novel was called Hunter, and it was about a Vietnam veteran who shoots and kills interracial couples in the Washington, D.C. era in the 1990s. Some consider Hunter to be somewhat of a prequel to the Turner Diaries, as in the beginning of the book you see the main character is initially he's just against interracial couples, interracial marriage, and whatnot. But as he starts to get more involved with something called, I actually forget the name, I might have to look it up at some point. I believe it's called it's something based off of the National Alliance. Well, initially he's just against misengagement, or interracial marriage, but after a while he it's kind of like they're trying to get him to develop a racial conscience, and they're like, well, you got to see who's behind all this, because if you're knocking all these people off, but you don't really see what they all have in common.
Yes. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, and this is just from the perspective of us and our experiences, but they believe a whole bunch of other stuff about liberals, white liberals, black liberals, doesn't matter. It's so, I kind of want to call us back together and kind of wrap up here. So that is all for today's show, listeners. I know that was a little heavy, but it's important that we bring attention to these things. As I said before, these ideas still persist in some form today. After all, the group went defunct in 2005. That was just 19 years ago. Some of you listening have memories from 2005. In order to properly fight these ideas and destroy these stereotypes once and for all, we have to first know what they are. Identify the actual enemy before you fight it. So I want to thank our wonderful guest for coming in today. This episode wouldn't have been possible without both his appearance and his research, so thank you, Miles. And thank you for listening today. If you have any business questions, you can feel free to email me. That is don.piper@bsu.edu. Make sure to follow me and the show on Instagram at dapperdon1012. That's DAPPERDON1012, all on one word. And Dapper Don's Wassup, WASSUP Cardinals. And follow me on Facebook if any of you still use that. That's Dapper Don. And where can they find you, Miles?
You can I'm usually, I guess, around with him. He usually tags my social media in his posts, but you can usually find me on Instagram at MilesK1138.
Okay. Anywhere else?
No, I'm just mainly based on Instagram.
Oh, okay. And also, if you'd like to secure a guest spot for next week's episode, or just let me know your thoughts on today's episode, you can leave a comment in the RadioFX app, and you can text the show's hotline, 765-245-7957. Again, if you'd like to secure a guest spot or just let me know your thoughts, that's 765-245-7957. The archived audio of today's show will be up on YouTube and Facebook tomorrow at 4. That's Thursday, September 5th at 4. Subscribe to Dapperdon1012 on YouTube so you never miss a beat, and follow me on Facebook. And then make sure you tune in next Wednesday at 4 for a lighter yet still hotly debated topic, 20 versus 1 videos and the demise of dating. Bye-bye.
Do what I should, man. Baby. Do what I could, man. Baby. Do what I should, man. Baby. Do what I could, man. Baby. Do what I should, man. Baby. Do what I could, man. Baby. Do what I should, man. Baby. Do what I could.
I ain't never represent, baby. Ain't do no wrong. I can clean up good for you. No, I know right from wrong. 'Cause I wanna make it. So nasty. I'm $1 million baby. Don't ask me. Oh, hell no. You in my city for so damn long. But you still don't notice me. Sound next. Oh, VA next. I'm at they neck. I'm running up the check. I see a bathroom, I'ma see a diva. No matter what happens, he cannot come between us again. I know we're better than friends. I took the Queen's Gambit, showed around my friends. Try to pick some energy up, it don't matter. I know you haven't moved on. If you tried, I don't believe it, baby. I know you lied all night long. What you mean I changed? I stay the same. Had me losing my mind. Said the city is mine. I ain't never represent, baby. Ain't do no wrong. I can clean up good for you. No, I know right from wrong. 'Cause I wanna make it. So mad. I'm $1 million baby. Don't let. I ain't never represent, baby. Ain't do no wrong. I can clean up good for you. No, I know right from wrong. 'Cause I wanna make it. So mad. I'm $1 million baby. Don't let me.
Do what I should, man. Do what I could, man.
Hell no.